Hello guys and gals, it's me, Jeffrey again. Today we're going to do another gaming related creepypasta, and this is a My Little Pony gaming related creepypasta called My Little Pony SNES, like SNES standing for Super Nintendo Entertainment System. You know, like the cartridge is for Super Nintendo and the system itself. So I'm going to read this in the word for word because it makes it more accurate. So let's get to it. My Little Pony SNES. I never thought anything strange would come from this day, on a rather sunny day for that matter. I filled up the trash bin next to my street with garbage that had been filling my home. I knew that the trash truck would be around soon to empty as always it be doing every day. Seeing as I had nothing else to do for the morning, I decided it would be a proper time to do a quick 5-minute jog to the next block downtown. In fact, the temperature was in the perfect spot so that I could never get really too hot until the end of the jog. As I walked back, to my home as part of the cool down, I was shocked at what I found. The trash in the bin had not been picked up, but was rather strewn about all around the bin. Barks, root beer cans were littered around the bin in a circle with along various other bits of debris. The black trash bag that I had placed also appeared to have been emptied completely and was just laid on top of the bin. Wondering what could have happened, I began to clean up the mess. However, I was about to place one of the bar cans back into the bag. The bag. It seemed as if this bag wasn't completely empty. So I curiously peered into it and found an old Super Nintendo cartridge. I don't remember throwing something out like that before, or recently. In fact, every SNES game that I have ever bought was still sitting in my basement. I thought whoever layered my trash everywhere did this. So I took the game out and examined it, and what was on it? It surprised me. I knew there had been a lot of stories about games that have labels torn off or just as a very suspicious looking cartridge to begin with. However, this label looked really professional in its making. The only thing off about it was the premise of the game that was shown by the label. The title was simply called My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, similar to how it was titled just by the show's name on the iOS game or the television show. The 4th generation to be exact, where the character models were even present on the cartridge, as well with Twilight, Pinky, Fluttershy, and all the other main characters were present. This was especially odd, since this version of the show came out in 2010, which was way after the time of anyone who was making Super Nintendo games for a profit. I then thought back to a particular game known as Battle Kid for the original NES. Someone had originally programmed that for an old system long, until it was abandoned by most developers. In fact, the guy was selling a physical copy of it to people for a small profit. After hearing this, I thought maybe it was some fan developer that wanted to share his or her creation with someone else. I was rather curious as to why it had to be done in such a messy manner though. They could have just left the game on my doorstep and I would have gladly sat down to play it. As I was beginning to walk back into my home, I noticed that the back of the cartridge did not feel as smooth as it should have. The fingers had slid across a rough patch somewhere. I flipped in, the supposed game over as I noticed one piece of tape on the back in black marker, and almost seeing as it was saying something in Times New Roman font, it just read this: I'm sharing the magic, TS. TS? Those are the same initials as Tara Strong, the voice actor of Twilight Sparkle, within the game that this is based on. I thought it was cool that whoever made this also got the approval of one of the actors as well. I remember seeing somewhere that once before described wherever Tara Strong touches certainly turns to gold. Seeing as I have yet to see anything terribly bad or scary come out of whatever she's a part of, I thought that's saying that it could have been some kind of merit in deterring on how good this game was really good at playing. I thought I rambled long enough just to, be about how I managed to come across the game. I think of that it was time to describe what came from playing it. When I first booted it up, I was surprised to see that the 16-bit sprites within the game resembled the main six main ponies in the show, what they looked like, sitting in front of what was Fluttershy's home in the show. They seemed to be relaxing with a nice little picnic. Twilight reading another book as usual, Fluttershy resting with her rabbit Angel next to her, Rainbow Dash just seen lying down on her back with sunglasses on, and so forth. And all that was covered was the classic logo that read My Little Pony. Most impressive yet was the audio too. It was the classic remix of Pinkie Pie's Smile song from the show, which was one of my favorites of all times. It always seemed to cheer me up in the worst of days. Hearing that through a Super Nintendo sound chip was just amazing. I knew this game actually had some effort put into it, but after getting over the beauty of the Smile track, I pressed start to this game. The first few screens explained the basic controls, which I would have to use to get past certain obstacles. If anything, this gameplay was similar to what Trine had to offer, which you had to use all your characters to get past certain obstacles. For example, Rainbow Dash would be necessary to move thunderclouds and fly over things, while Fluttershy would be used to tame and walk past any large living creature that you have to run, past, of course. For the inanimate objects, that would be like things for like Twilight using magic, or Pinkie Pie using a party cannon, so forth. And Applejack's main purpose was bulking all the apples out of the tree for more food in the event if your team's health got too low. But apple trees were very rare in this game, though it would only provide a maximum of 3 apples when kicked. Rarity was simply used for the majority of stealthy portions in this game, which you would have to get past a guard or avoid being detected, as you would have to use several of the outfits to blend in with your surroundings. Now that you've got that lengthy description in your mind, now it's time to describe what was truly frightening of this experience. After playing through the majority of the levels for about an hour, I came across a level that simply said Stage 16, Stop. I thought it was odd. The way Stop was written was unnerving, as it seemed like small drips of blood were dripping from each of the red labels. As the level faded into view, I was horrified of what I saw. Dead, lifeless trees that looked more like Nintendo 64 graphics were appearing on the screen. Sky was also blackened with a slight tint of red. With the ground I had walked on was more gray instead of the lively colors I saw before. The character who was on the screen was Fluttershy, who seemed more worried than usual. The freakiest part was that in this was the playing of the Smile song in reverse. This wasn't the 16-bit version. It sounded like the actual instrumental of the song just playing in reverse, like the authentic thing. I was just beyond words at this point. Whoever made this game was probably a sick, twisted individual. Confused on why there was a sudden change of atmosphere, I decided to move forward, only to see a giant, bony, black hand rise out of the ground and grab Fluttershy. She was crushed within the same instant, with blood dripping out every direction. The game had never been this graphic with a character death before. In fact, there was never any blood in the event before a character temporarily fainted. Deciding to try a different approach to overcoming the obstacle of the other hand, I thought I could use Rainbow Dash to fly well over and above. However, to the horror, the hand reached up and crushed poor Dash with that same grip, which could have gotten the best of me before. Maybe Pinkie Pie would help me? Nope, she was crushed with a giant pool of blood as well. I tried switching to Twilight to see if I could use her magic to get across, but the game was bugged and would not let me get to her at this point. So maybe I could try use Rarity. Nope, no such luck. The camouflage was useless and was bloodstained after she got crushed. Twilight was still unselectable, so Applejack was the last hope. Of course, She was crushed as easily as someone would bite into a single apple. I had given up hope on beating this game when suddenly the game put Twilight in control. In fact, I was no longer pressing any buttons. She was just casually strolling past the spots where the other 5 members of the party were brutally crushed as if they were toothpicks. After she reached the edge of the screen, a dialogue box appeared. Princess Celestia was right. Friends really do come in handy when you need them. After I pressed A to remove this dialogue, the reverse music stopped. It was dead silence for about 10 more seconds. Then, after that, another dialogue box appeared. Their potential was exceedingly great. I even felt so good to possess it for myself. I feel as if I can accomplish anything now. What kind of sick madness was this? This wasn't the Twilight that I knew from the show. She would never harm her friends just for her own personal gain, would she? Then Twilight turned directly towards me. I could see a red, pixelated glowing in her eyes as she just stared at me intently. I'm only merely doing what you've been doing this entire time. I'm using my friends as a means of escaping my current life. You've grown bored of your own life in the same way I have mine. It's time to move on. Using them? How is anything she's done even remotely comparable to my feelings? Almost as in response to my question, she answered, "Your own life is empty as mine, and you turned elsewhere to keep yourself entertained. You needed a purpose, and I found mine, but it seems as if you still need to find yours." At this point, a very disturbing image of Twilight with a unsettling smile like the one seen in the episode called Less Than Zero from Season 2. That smile still sends shivers down my spine as I saw on the show. But this far, tops, was what was detailed. Everything about this seemed as if a real-life photograph had been snapped with a high-quality camera. Her eyes were completely missing. Beyond each of the sockets was just a black void. The mouth was also toothless, as there were no tongue or any features within it either. It was just a black void as the eyes were. At this point, the text just splattered across the screen, almost as if each letter stroke was carved with a knife, covered in blood. The text read, "I'm sharing the magic." At this point, a loud, ear-piercing scream suddenly came out of the speakers. I covered my ears in a vain attempt to block out the screams, but it was still coming out, and I fumbled with the power button on the SNES for a few seconds. And the sound finally stopped as the game was shut off. I ejected the game cartridge and left it sitting on the table. I knew I had to share this experience with everyone, and I needed all the proof I could get to show everyone that the case was real. However, I felt really tired despite the time only being 1 in the afternoon. So I decided a quick nap wouldn't hurt me much. However, during this quick nap, I happened to have a strange dream. I felt like I was walking down the street in my original hometown of Ballville, Connecticut. I was usually just casually walking down the street when I stopped in front of someone's trash bin, and I madly ravaged through the trash receptacle for whatever strange reason, littering all kinds of trash here and there. I also happened to take something out of the bag that I had seen somehow been carrying, that being the cursed cartridge that I managed to come across earlier. So far, the front label looked normal, but then it changed into the shape of the frightening picture of Twilight that I described earlier. Scared to even look at it for more than a few seconds, I dropped that cartridge and ran away from wherever that place was as fast as I could. When I woke up from my dream, I was relieved that I was still in my home. However, the oddest part was that looking in my kitchen table and noticing that the game was gone. I could have sworn I put the game on that table. As I was madly searching around the house for the game, I got frustrated and knew it was futile to try a search for the game, but I was getting more and more stressed out every minute. So I decided to take a break and check my email. My mother had sent emails detailing a strange incident that had happened at her home that morning. Someone had just gone and messed with her trash just like whatever happened to me earlier. She made no mention of a game though. However, she did know Well, I do know that she probably thought the game was probably more garbage, that she wasn't really interested in gaming to begin with. I wasn't bothered in asking questions about it, as it would just be some left out left field at the time. Plus, there was a slight fact that what I had dreamed was actually what I had done. I don't know where that game is at right now. Maybe I finally got hauled off to the dump where it actually belongs. Maybe my mother got a crazy idea to actually play it, and now she has to suffer the same torment that I did while involuntarily passing on to someone else. Wherever it is, be careful when you're playing it. If that Twilight has enough power to control people's actions in the real world, then who knows what she'll be capable of doing soon. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was My Little Pony, SNES. Now, granted aside, the blood cliche, it's minimum, but it's all pixelated, but it's not like hyper realistic blood. The only other cliche was that this was lengthy, but it was not too lengthy. It gave me enough detail of what was going on in the story. If this thing actually does have a sequel, if this sequel does involve my OC, then I might as well read it. But who knows? Unless there's some kind of ghost writer out there on Earth that's known to write stories for me or other people to read, but that's besides the point. If this was a game that actually acts like a chainmail, like with Twilight doing this, wouldn't that be put on the news and question the community of My Little Pony itself, as well as Hasbro Enterprises, which creates the merchandise and stuff? Probably and probably not. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this gaming creepypasta. Like it if you like it, dislike it. This is Jeffrey Simberski signing out, and tell me what you want to see next. So yeah, this was November's creepypasta of the month, and I'll still be doing these stories, but they won't be very often. I'm very busy with a series called My Digital Escape, so remember that.